Business Focus with Kudzie, Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.
Morning and welcome to Business Focus. Morning to you, Kudzie. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, Patsan, and good morning, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Kudzie. It is Business Focus. As always, we discuss a lot of what's happening in the world of business. Let's begin with
the ZSE.
ZSE from yesterday.
Yeah, I think we can start with let's start with companies that are listed on the ZSE in terms of how they are performing. So this morning in the papers, you find their interim results. So interim is like half-year period results. And for Rio Zim, which is a company that is in the mining industry, the mining sector, they produce gold. And, gold has been doing well this year in terms of the international price of gold. More than it has beat its previous records, and it's trading at close to $2,700 per ounce. So that's big, and any miner would want such a price, if not even higher. But and you try as much as you can to ramp up production, to increase production, so that you can benefit from the current good gold prices. These are minerals. Gold, a few years ago, it was trading at around $1,000 per ounce. Now it's trading at $2,600. So you'd want to dig as much gold as you can from the ground, so that you can benefit from the good gold prices. But for Rio Zim, the opposite is true. Gold production at the company recorded a 27% decline for the 6 months period under review. So they only produced about 306 kgs as compared to 417 kgs that they produced the prior year comparative. And they are saying this low production was attributed mainly to Cayman Motor, one of our Kadomano is Yama in UAE, which is operating at suboptimally due to low plant throughput and depressed recoveries. So that's Rio Zim there. They also have another mine called Renko Mine, which also recorded lower gold production due to what they called inconsistent plant performance. And the gold price average that they got was 2,165 for the period under review. So you can see the Rio Zim struggling at the wrong time. When you're supposed to be benefiting and you're producing less and less gold than you produced before. So you don't get to enjoy the good prices that others are enjoying. If you look at one of the companies that is listed on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, that's Caledonia, and they own Blanket Mine here in Zimbabwe. They are doing every quarter, their production grows, and you can see, and they reward their investors with dividends every quarter. So I'm not sure. Maybe the Rio Zim mines are now old. Their plant and equipment are also very old, which results in declining production. So another company listed on this time, it's not a company as such, it's a real estate investment trust. That's the Tigere rate. We've spoken about it. They own the Island Park. They own another property along Kona in town, and they also recently acquired Highland Park Phase 2. And occupants at Highland Park, Tinashe, it's 100%. Yeah, Pakazara.
Yeah.
And they are also saying that sales for their customers, their tenants, sales are also growing, which means that what they get, rent per square meter, also went up to $19.24. So, rent per square meter, every square meter
yes.
is on
$19.
average they are getting $19.24. You don't get that kind of a return or of income in most places. So this is what they are getting now. Prior to that, they were getting $17.75. Now they are getting $19.24. And the beauty about real estate investment trust, for example, a mall, but real estate investment trust akanakira kuti you can buy kapiece kemall andizoti ndinoendetera chiti ndakasvika pa one of their inonzi Kwame Mall, not Kwame Mall, there's the one ikona Josiah Chinamano and 2nd Street, which is also owned by the Tigere rate. And I was saying to my daughter when we were coming from her school, they were saying to her, do you know I own part of this property?
Oh, because you're a shareholder.
Yes, because I'm a shareholder, I'm a unit holder there. They were laughing, but they understand now because they've been listening to me on radio for a while, so they understand what it means when I say I own part of this building. So they've also, because of the nature of the rate, every quarter they must for their profit, 80% of their net profit must be declared as dividends to their unit holders. So again, owners of units in Tigere rate are going to get a dividend. And then looking at the ZSC now, so the all share index up by 1.8%, the top 10 index doing even better, up by 2.66%. Top risers, Wildell putting on 11.5%, CBZ adding 11.16%, Art up by 8.33%, Tanganda adding 7.14%, and Ariston also putting on 4.76%. And then on the downside, Nampec was the biggest loser with a 15% drop. TSL losing 10.71%. Tenau down by 7.2%. And then Mikus and MB also amongst the losers. And then you got Delta getting the bulk of the funds that were invested, about 4.4 million ZiG. Econet getting about 787,000 ZiG. OK Zimbabwe 266,000 ZiG. NMB and BAT also getting a sizable chunk of the investments. So for those who Tinashe, who are investing in the money market, people will be takakura kwenye ma money markets and stuff like that, and then my unit trust, and maybe some might want to know what banks are paying. So indicative rates for one of the banks, for 30 days you get an interest rate of 5% per annum. For 120 days you get 5% per annum. That's and then for 60 days you get, again, in fact I think all they are all getting 5% per annum. For all, either I've got two banks here, and for 30 days they're paying 5%, for 60 days 5%, for 90 days 5%, across up to 360 days they're paying 5% per annum. And that will give you, remember yesterday's financial term of the day, we said it's called a yield curve. A yield curve, a normal yield curve is upward sloping, because instruments with a low maturity period, like let's say it's 30 days, in interest rates it is lower. Then for 90 days it should be slightly higher. For 360 days it should also be slightly higher. So you get your upward sloping yield curve. Yes, you
I would rather put every month in Shitora 5% every month rather than go for 5%. Does it make sense?
So it depends on the, like these ones, for example, it's a 30-day, money market instrument, right? Which means that after 30 days you get your money plus your interest, but your interest is 5% per annum. So 5% divided by 12 to get your actual interest for that particular month. So I was saying yesterday, so it was yield curve. But this one now, because 30 days you've got 5% up to the end, it will give you. I know that normally we use treasury bills, bonds to come up with a yield curve. But if these were bonds and the yield curve that you get there is a flat yield curve, horizontal. So yeah, so that's the money market. What you can get if you are to leave your money in the bank.
Still talking about that, Amos in Nigeria, in Lagos, Nigeria, is saying that other than gold coins, how else can I invest my money in gold?
Gold
coins are vachato issue. They stopped issuing gold coins. Gold-backed tokens, I think they've also stopped. But another way of investing in gold is buying into, if you're in Zimbabwe, for example, is you have to buy gold miners, companies that are producing gold, like Anario Zimotanchitoranezha, that's indirectly buying into a gold asset. That's in Zimbabwe. But I think in other markets there are exchange traded funds that also track gold, that might own gold. So those are some of the areas. And then in Zimbabwe, at some point they want to introduce on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange a commodities market, where again you can indirectly own assets such as chrome. For example, they want to start with chrome. It will be trading on the commodities exchange.
Commodities exchange grains footed.
So but Yema grains you're actually buying, you can it's almost the same, because now, so these are agricultural commodities and then mineral commodities. But probably as an individual you might not be buying the chrome itself, but they can then create my derivatives, they can then create my features where you can then indirectly also invest in those assets.
All right, Elder Samanyanga in Banket is saying that the challenge with Rio Zima, is the same challenge faced by most industries in the country. They are not replacing old and outdated equipment with modern technology, which will improve their productivity, resulting in the country being a net importer. We need to recapitalize our industries.
Yes, there is that need for recapitalization of industries. You know, over the years, Rio Zim was one of the my export retentions here. Yekuti, for example, an exporter, surrender 25% to treasure to RBZ and 25% of their export earnings. Vopiwa zig at the official exchange rate, which is at 26 point something at the moment, right? But then my services are within the economy probably being priced at the parallel market exchange of 35. So they are losing value. It becomes a huge tax to them. On top of all other taxes, this exchange rate disparity is now viewed by miners as a tax, and some of them will then claim that we are failing to recapitalize because we are losing 25% of our US dollar earnings at a lower exchange rate. So yes, there is that need, but even before these challenges, we were seeing companies like Rio Zim still struggling. They really need to reinvest in their planted equipment.
All right, Kudzie, it's a Friday as always. We have the Business Weekly that is out. But before we get into there's another question from Pauline Marasha. We're saying that, please help me here. I was reading somewhere where it mentioned that power cuts have significantly impacted mining production. Maybe Rio Zim could have fallen victim to that, among other factors, energy and fuel challenges. My question then is our mining production safe in the future if we continue to have these extensive power outages, including other businesses?
Yeah, power is definitely a challenge. That's why you've seen some miners like Blanket Mining and Atore. What they did, they invested about 13 million US and put up a solar power plant. You know, now what they've done, they've restructured that power plant. 13 million. They sold it to another company for 22 million. Profit 7 million. But then, even though what is a power plant here, another company, that company will be reselling to them Blanket Mine again. Profit. So some miners have been investing in that, but you are now taking some of your capital power plant, and yet you are also so it's an issue in terms of power cuts. But although high power users, but there is actually a name that they've given themselves, like miners. They have ring fenced import power directly from other markets. Unfortunately, in Zambia, power challenges. In South Africa, yes, South Africa now they've gone for more than 200 days without any power cuts. They can also import from South Africa.
Kudzie, pane mvunzo waverengwa natinasho ku DRC ukuthi Nigeria wathi anokwanisa kuinvesta mumamine. Is it certain endokwanisa kuinvesta mu gold remove kutoti ndane share gold remove? And run a loss here. I fembera. How can one invest in mine really? Invest in mine fembera.
Not really, because you know before a miner azoti utanga uchi miner so anditi pane ma exploration anoitwa votokwanisa kutoziva kuti pasa apa pane gold rakawanda sei. They actually know. Technology inotodaro zvekutodaro. That's why urikuona those guys vekumzarabani vaive, they say we have discovered oil. But there are still some processes that they now need to look at kuti, okay, yes, oil iripo, but yakawanda here zvekuti you can actually invest billions of dollars kuti tichiiburitsa, because nogona kunge ingori shoma inozadza 1 drum imi matoita se maisa maplant saka gold riripo gold riri
sandokwanisa kutoinvesta mune.
Yes, ariko makambani ari kutofaya like tambotaura mamwe acho ari kutofaya the production of gold is going up every day, and you can then invest in those.
Okay, we've got 3 minutes Kudzie left for us to check the stories making headlines in today's edition of the Business Weekly.
Before that, well, let me just talk about Business Weekly, right? So yeah, Business Weekly is a weekly paper, so you are likely to get what we call day 2 stories. With when something happens, it comes out as hard news to announce. But papers like weekly papers like Business Weekly, you then find day 2 stories, or in a more in-depth analysis. So the story that they have on the front page is Zig devaluation decimates confidence. The devaluation here, it has affected confidence within the market. So you get analysts and captains of industry commenting on that. And then the new land policy, fit for purpose. This is the Bankers Association of Zimbabwe. They are saying, well, this is BAZ CEO Fano Mtoko, who is saying that new land policy fit for purpose. But I saw another paper, another weekly paper, my bankers are let's approach this with caution, and they were quoting the Bankers Association president. So I think the Bankers Association need to talk to each other and come up with a position. But anyway, so maybe it could be the paper's red lines only. And then another story says Zim debt to GDP ratio slows but still unsustainable, talking about the country's debt overhang. And then I think those are the top stories that you can find in the Business Weekly. Another story says industry sounds alarm as Zimbabwe edges closer to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. So industry saying that, guys, the cost of doing business in Zimbabwe, the ease of doing business in Zimbabwe, there are so many structural issues that will make us uncompetitive when the Africa Continental Free Trade Area comes to town.
Okay, there's a last message we've got for you. It says, for you, Kudzie. Could you spare 2 minutes to assist new investors interested in purchasing shares? Your guidance would be invaluable in walking them through the step-by-step process of buying actual shares and completing the necessary procedures. Which platform to use, how to move money and buy. So, and spare 2 minutes of your time.
Yeah, we'll spare one of these days. We'll do that. But you can also get in touch on Twitter at Kudzie_Sharara. Kudzie, KUDZIE_Sharara. And then you can DM. I've got a PowerPoint that I use with also with the voice on that PowerPoint to explain everything that you can also follow. But you can also look at the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange website for and get in touch with stockbrokers. The Securities and Exchange Commission website to get in touch with asset managers. They can also help. But I'm there to do the educational side, not the advisory side.
Yeah, I get it. All right, Kudzie, thank you so much for the week of discussing business. We'll do this again next week. Have yourself a great weekend.
Thank you, Tinashe.
Business Focus with Kudzie Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.